Welcome to the SLP Business Podcast. The SLP Business Podcast. The SLP Business Podcast. I'm so excited to dive in and talk to you today. We're talking about the hustle, and it has to do with confidence. It's just about that ability to connect with clients. Ready? I'm so excited to launch this all new rebranded podcast. We have video now, we have guests. So I get to introduce you to some of my favorite clinicians and people in the business field that I've worked with who have helped me in my private practice. So I'm going to introduce to you our very first guest, Theresa Richard. She has a pretty lengthy bio, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. Theresa Richard is a distinguished medical speech language pathologist and board certified specialist in swallowing and swallowing disorders. Currently completing her PhD in healthcare leadership and healthcare education. Theresa's entrepreneurial journey began with founding a successful mobile fees company where she identified a critical knowledge gap among SLPs, leading to the creation of the acclaimed Swallow Your Pride podcast. This podcast, which debuted at the number 11 spot on the science and medicine chart, has generated over 5 million downloads and established her as a leading voice in the field. Theresa is an influential advocate for patients with swallowing disorders, and she's contributed to 2 landmark papers in the Dysphagia Journal addressing assessment and treatment during the COVID-19 pandemic. Theresa's commitment to advancing the field of medical speech language pathology is further exemplified through her role as the founder and CEO of the Medical SLP Collective, a thriving community of over 6,000 members. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Theresa Richard, one of our first guests in person live on the SLP Business Podcast. All right. Well, Theresa, I am so excited to have you here on my newly rebranded podcast. For those of you who don't know, I started the SLP Business Podcast just as a recording of myself using my cell phone. And now I have cameras and I have guests. So thank you for being one of my first in-person guests on camera. So today we're going to be talking about how you built your business. You have several businesses, but I want to know, how did you bootstrap and create this dream company that you have today, in addition to some of the other companies that you've started in the past? So I'm going to start at the beginning. Can you take us to the moment when you decided to start your mobile fees company?
Yeah, sure. So I was thinking about this morning a lot, and I'm grateful for the experience that I have now, but I also was equally grateful at how naive I was about starting businesses. And I just thought everything was going to be rainbows and butterflies and just easy. And I'd get contracts and I'd work with patients and all the money would come flowing in. And I'm grateful that I had those blinders on, because I think that's what made me as successful as I am today. Like right now, I think of so many things that have happened to me and I'm like, oh, but this could happen, but this could happen. And I'm glad I didn't think of those things in the past. And when my idea for starting the mobile fees company was, I just assumed they existed everywhere. I, at the time, was living in Indianapolis and I had a great relationship with a mobile fees company. And I loved her. I loved the service she brought to my patients. I loved my relationship with her. And I just assumed this existed everywhere. We relocated to Las Vegas. And, I told my husband at the time, I said, I want to work for a mobile fees company. And so I started looking around and I'm like, why am I not finding a mobile fees company? Like, clearly they exist. And so I just blindly called a few nursing homes and I was like, hey, who do you guys use for mobile fees companies? And they're like, we don't even know what you're talking about. And so after about 6 months of doing research, I realized like this didn't exist in this area.
Wow.
And I knew just how important it was to patients and how much I loved it. And so at that point, I was like, maybe I'll just start my own. And I knew nothing about business. I did not come from a family of entrepreneurs. I did not come from a family of, great wealth or anything like that. It was just me saying like, well, maybe I'll just start it.
Yeah.
And I just started Googling, okay, how do I start a mobile fees business? How do I purchase equipment? Who's going to teach me? I knew I needed business coaches. I knew I needed people to tell me how to run the business. Mm-hmm. And I just that's what I found. I found the equipment. I found some people that taught me how to get the business started, and I took a leap. I invested some money into it. And, at the time I still was working for a few different home health companies just to bring income in. But I just went all in on this. And I didn't give myself the option of it not succeeding. Right. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned now. Gosh, okay, so that was in 2013, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So 12 years later of running my own businesses, I didn't give myself the option of quitting or failing. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing is you only fail if you quit. If you keep going, you can make the thing work. You can continue to problem solve. You talk about pivoting all the time.
Oh, yeah. I'm the pivot queen.
Anybody that runs a business has to pivot constantly. And that's the only thing that will keep you sustaining. And if you don't, if you walk away, if you quit, that's when you fail.
Yeah. So I love that. And I used to say all the time to my team and to myself, 2 words you will never hear are Ebony quit.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to pivot.
Yep.
I'm going to do what needs to get done to make sure that this business is successful. And if I fail, then I fail, but it's not an option.
Right.
So,
right.
So yeah, I love that. And, what motivated you to take the leap? You knew that there was a need in your area, but that's a scary leap. So like, what was the thing that gave you the confidence to just do it?
It was just a passion I had for providing this service for patients. I knew how incredible and wonderful this service was. When you think about, I'm passionate about swallowing disorders. I'm board certified in swallowing disorders. I have a son with a feeding and swallowing disorder. You think about what is something that everybody does every day that they don't think about, what's so impactful on their quality of life, and it's eating and swallowing, right?
Right.
And if you can't, we just had the holidays. If you can't sit around and have Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah dinner with your family, like that's awful. And so I would have patients all the time that either they hadn't eaten in years or they had a wonderful quality of life, but just recently had a stroke, and nobody has access to a swallow study to tell them if they can or cannot eat again, or if they can eat again, what needs to happen for that to happen, or what exercise protocol is going to be best. And so I just knew the profound impact that it had on patients. And I just knew I have to be this person that makes this accessible to patients, to facilities, and to other SLPs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's similar to my own story, of how I started my private practice. I work in pediatrics. We provide home health services, and we do clinic-based services and telehealth. And one of my biggest school contracts was because there was a need in an area where there were no other clinicians, none. So it was October of the school year, and they didn't have a therapist for these students. And they had IEPs that were requiring them to have speech minutes. And so they were desperately reaching out to people asking if, people were willing to move there. And I said, well, I can't move there, but I can figure out how to get you services via teletherapy. And this was before COVID. So I learned in a weekend how to do teletherapy and hired therapists and then trained them on how to do teletherapy. And 5 years later, we're still working with this district, and they were able to fulfill this huge need. There's like thousands of kids in this district. It's a very large district, but there was just no access to services out there. So I was like, I need to figure this out because these kids need to get their services. Right. So I love that, you identified the need, and then that was what propelled you into filling that need through your journey. So,
and I think that's something we forget along the way. Like, why did we all get into this profession, right? To help patients, to help kids. And we get lost in things that happen, or, businesses take off, or they go in different ways that are unexpected. And I just always go back to, like, why did I get into this in the first place?
Exactly.
To help patients communicate and swallow. And so all the other surrounding noise, all the other drama, it really doesn't matter if I'm doing what I set out to do.
Yeah. And I love that you said all the other surrounding noise and drama, because that is so true, that there can be things that come in and distract you, right? But it also, to me, I see opportunities that blossom from knowing why you started this in the first place, and then opportunities to help enhance that come about as well, which is how I'm sure the Medical SLP Collective came about, and some of the other things that you're involved in. So I want to talk about the challenges that you faced while bootstrapping this fees company, because like you said, you didn't come from a business background. You just started this company from the ground up. So what were some of those challenges with bootstrapping, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, what I did not realize, and that's actually what catapulted me into the next phase of my career, but what I did not realize was the lack of education that SLPs themselves had. So I didn't have a problem getting contracts with nursing homes and hospitals and having administrators or directors of rehab or directors of nursing realize the value of the service we were providing. It was our own SLPs that didn't realize it. And that was not something that I was expecting. And so that was when I had to pivot my entire marketing pitch completely. I thought I was marketing to administrators and directors of nursing to bring the service in and provide it. They understood it. It just wasn't the SLPs that were making the referrals for it. So from that aspect, I had to change all of my marketing to marketing towards SLPs. And that's just when I went on the whole education crusade of why is this important? Why do SLPs need access to the service? How can it help you become a better therapist? How can it improve your reimbursement rates? All those things. And so that's when I totally had to pivot my marketing. And that's really when the company exploded. And so I think that's something you don't know what you're going to face. You don't know what those roadblocks are going to be. And so I think people talk themselves out of starting a business or talk themselves out of going to the next level because they say, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? What if that never happens? Yeah. But this is going to happen. And you don't know what those things are until you face them, and you have to just tackle them head on and pivot as we talk about.
Exactly. Yeah. Listeners, I want you guys to imagine building a plane while flying it, because that's what bootstrapping a business is like. It's like building a plane while flying it. You have to navigate the turbulence. You have to figure out like, how much of this do I need to, make sure that this plane stays in the air? How much input do I need from this other area? And like, how am I going to navigate all these things that I didn't even know existed on this path, right? As I'm trying to build this plane while flying it. There's not really a manual for it, right? Yep. You just kind of go or learn as you go. Thankfully, you were able to figure it all out and build this amazing company. And then you started the education component as well. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. And that was the thing that I never knew that I was going to build the thing. That was the thing that I never knew existed that I was passionate about. And to say that now I'm almost done with my PhD and to think that I didn't know that education was my passion is funny and ironic, but here we are. But that's exactly what happened. I realized in order for SLPs to understand the value of this service and why they needed it, I needed to educate them. And so I started a blog, and, I just was writing thoughts down that were just going to be like an email newsletter, just to the facilities that we serviced. It had no other intent, no other motivation behind it other than just educating the therapists that we had contracts with. And they ended up getting shared and shared and shared. And so then I started to put them on an actual blog. And one of my blog posts was shared like 30,000 times in 24 hours. Like, it was something outrageous. And I was like, wow, there's really such a need for this sort of education. Yeah. And so I did the blogging for, I think, about like 6 months. And then I just knew I had my son was very young at the time. I just knew I couldn't keep up with that pace. Right. So I started the podcast. And because I was at the point that I was driving 4 hours away to a facility to do mobile fees for patients. So what was I doing on those 4-hour drives? I was listening to podcasts. And I learned so much business education that way. And I was like, hey, maybe this is how I educate SLPs. How many other SLPs are out on the road just like I am right now? And so that's when I thought of starting my podcast, the Swallow Your Pride podcast. And I was not expecting the success that I had with that. It debuted at number 11 on the Science and Medicine chart. It has over 5 million downloads now. And so to me, I was like, wow, there's an actual need for all of this education. SLPs are really craving, wanting to know more about swallowing disorders, how they can help their patients most. And so from there, that's when I decided to start the Medical SLP Collective and really get crystal clear on how we can help support SLPs that want to work with patients with swallowing disorders the most. Yeah. So
no, that makes so much sense. I used to listen to podcasts all the time. When I was in home health, I used to listen to podcasts about private practice. And so that's great. I mean, you figured out a way to provide that education and that support. And does your podcast offer CEUs?
It doesn't. And that was something that I was intentional about, only because the Medical SLP Collective does.
Gotcha.
And so that was something I wanted to keep separate. I wanted to keep the podcast just totally free. Anybody can access it. And then if people want CEUs, they can join the Medical SLP Collective.
Right. But it just goes to show, like, people still want the knowledge, right? They still are going to listen to the podcast, even if they're not getting their CEUs for it, because this is information that's helping them in their careers. So that's amazing. And this was probably, how long has it been? Because I know your podcast has been around for a while.
8 years now. 7-8 years.
So before like podcasts became super popular
Yep.
and, everyone has a podcast now. But
Yep.
what are some ways that as you were building these businesses, you found resources to build your businesses? Like, what are some strategies that you used? Because you said there was no mobile fees in the area that you started that company.
Yeah.
There was no other person doing the education. So how did you find like the resources to create what you created?
I'd say all networking, to be honest. It's all networking. I think at the time I didn't understand. I had hired business coaches originally to help me start the business to begin with, but I didn't understand the power of continuing with business coaches and business mentors like I do now.
Right.
But I had conversations with so many people that I knew, and I still do that. How many times are we afraid to call and ask a friend a question? I know
Right.
you and I talk a lot. We have a group
Yeah.
that we talk all the time. And we're not afraid to ask each other questions. But I think so many times people are afraid to just say, oh gosh, I really wish I could do that thing that she's doing, but I could never ask her. I would feel bad.
Right.
But I want to encourage people to go call that person.
Yeah.
And I'm starting a new clinic myself, and I've just had so many incredible conversations this week with people. This person's, hey, call this person. Hey, I'm going to connect you with this person. I'm going to connect you with this person. And it's not even an exchange of money sometimes. Sometimes it's just an exchange of ideas. But sometimes it does turn into, hey, I have this business coaching program, or I have this mentorship, or I have this mastermind. You should consider joining.
Yeah.
And those are worth their weight in gold too. So I think it's the power of both just networking and calling the people that you're afraid to call and you think, oh, I'm bothering them or they don't want to hear from me. And I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they're very happy to help you. And I know anytime somebody just emails me and says, would you mind helping? I'm always happy to get on a call and share what I know. And I think the biggest thing, I tell people this all the time, there's not a lack of ideas in this field. There's not a lack of people not knowing what to do. There's a lack of people actually going and doing the thing.
Right.
And I will support anybody who has the guts to go build the thing that they talk about building. And I will support anybody to the nth degree that has the guts to go build the thing. Because not many people do. People talk about it. And people say to me all the time, oh, I had that same idea for the Medical SLP Collective. Okay, but you didn't do it. I feel mean saying that, but it's tough to say, I've done the blood, sweat, and tears of it. I did the thing. Yeah. And you should go do the thing you want to go do too. But it's going to require a lot of guts, and it requires having conversations with people that are willing to help you get to the next level and are willing to send you in the right direction.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I want to highlight 2 things. First of all, Theresa just soft launched on the podcast that she's building a clinic. So
yes. We can hard launch it in a few minutes, but yeah.
So I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
It's going to be incredible. You have, all of the experience in the adult world of speech language pathology, and it's a much needed resource in any community. I know people call us all the time as a pediatric practice looking for those services. So I can't wait to hear more about that. And second of all, what she's saying about talking to people and reaching out when you need help, she is a woman of her word, because before I started the SLP Business Suite and wanted to offer ASHA CEUs, Theresa was the first person that I called. And I said, I don't know if I want to offer ASHA CEUs, but I have this idea. I want to teach courses and I want people to be able to get CEUs for it. So what is your experience with doing that? And she had a conversation with me. We never talked before on the phone. And she was able to kind of tell me what I needed to know so that I can make the decision. And ultimately, I decided to go ahead and do it. So she's not just saying that, like, she really will help you if you have an idea and you want to get someone's perspective who's already done it. So thank you for doing that for me and for everyone else. Yeah. Because that's what I needed. I needed to hear from you and, get the confidence to be able to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to do this for myself. If Theresa can do it and she's telling me that I can do it, then I'm going to do it. Yes. So, and it's been great. It's been wonderful.
Good. Awesome.
And a great way to grow my business. So I appreciate that.
Yes, love to hear that.
So let's talk a little bit about some mistakes, because every entrepreneur makes mistakes. And then what is one mistake that you made early on that turned into a valuable lesson for your business?
I don't know that I can think of like one tangible mistake as much as I want to go back and harp on like the power of networking as much, because I would say my mistakes early on were not reaching out to people and trusting that there's good, that people want to do good in the world and people want to help you. And I look back now I struggled so much in the beginning because I thought I had to do it all myself, and learning to go and ask for help, and not only ask for help in guidance and in wisdom, but learning how to hire and learning how to delegate things sooner than you think. I guess I will say this was a mistake. I was 9 months pregnant and I hired 6 people in one day because I realized I'm literally about to have a baby and I cannot do. I was still traveling 60 hours a week doing mobile fees when I was 9 months pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I would say don't let yourself get to that point of thinking I have to do all of this myself. Mm-hmm. And I think, and you know this too, as your company grows and you get bigger, you understand the power of having an incredible team to support you. And you cannot grow and scale without having an incredible team. And I wish that was something that I embraced sooner. Like, I don't know if I was selfish to think nobody can do this better than me, or it has to be me because it's my name on it. It's my baby. And I thought that way about my first business. This is my first baby, which it was. But, thinking now of the wonderful people that I've surrounded myself with and the incredible team that I've had with me for probably 6-7 years now, they've all been with me the whole time. I wish I learned the power of networking and delegating and hiring much, much, much sooner, and embracing that that's a superpower. It's not a weakness. It's not a weakness to delegate or to give your job to somebody else. It's a superpower to find people that can do this portion of that better than you can.
No, I completely agree. I'm the same way. I had trouble letting go and trusting people because I felt like I could do it better, right? Yeah. And the reality is that we're actually hurting ourselves and hurting our businesses by holding on to those things that really someone else can do, and they can do it just as efficiently, if not better, because that's all they do, right?
Yep.
So, I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make early on. And as you start to get bigger in business, you realize like, okay, something has to change. I cannot do all these things. So did you end up keeping all 6 of those people?
I did. They're all still with me.
Oh my gosh.
And I think, and that's, what's interesting too, is like, how was I going to afford to hire people? Like, I was brainwashed to think at the time, like, I can't afford to hire. I had all these limiting beliefs. I had all these stories that I was telling myself until it came to the point that I'm about to have a baby. I have no choice. Right.
Yeah.
And it worked itself out, and you learn the power of your numbers, and you learn, profit and loss and balance sheets and things like that as you go. But I just naively didn't think that it would work out. I didn't think I could afford to hire people when in reality I couldn't afford not to hire people.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that it worked out and that those 6 people are still with you, and you had the baby and you were able to get some time with your baby, which I'm sure, was the biggest payoff out of all that.
Yes.
So let's talk about your support systems, because you're a mom, you're a doctoral student. You're still in your PhD program.
Yes,
when do you graduate?
I should be done with my dissertation like middle of this year. So I am all done with coursework. I am officially all but dissertation. So I passed my comprehensive exams. They were absolutely brutal, but they're done. Yes. Whew. So
well, I cannot wait until the finish line, because I can only imagine. I'm still in the beginning stages, but
you'll get there. It goes by so much faster than I thought. Like for so long I was like, I want to be done with my PhD by the time I'm 40. Mm-hmm. And then I started looking at it and I was like, at this point I need to just start before I'm 40.
Yeah.
And so I did. And now I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go one semester at a time. I don't know how I'm going to manage all this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to just go one semester at a time. And that's what I've done. And now I look back and I'm like, holy cow, I did all that.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
How long has it been?
So 3.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my program is about 3 years. So all right, you're giving me hope that I can do this.
Yeah.
So when it comes to support systems, what are your biggest sources of support as you've built multiple businesses from the ground up?
Help at home. I think, women are afraid to talk about that, but I cannot do what I do without help and support at home. I have a full-time nanny. I have a personal assistant. I have people that run my life, because I cannot run my businesses and be the mother that I want to be without that. Mm-hmm. And I'm not afraid to talk about that at all, because it needs to be, and people always say, how do you do it all? I don't do it all. I would never say I do it all. But I say I'm really pretty good at running my businesses, and I'm a really good mom too. Yeah. And I'm able to say that because of all the support that I have at home. Like, I don't do laundry. I don't grocery shop. I don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
And if that makes me a crappy woman, then so be it. But that's
It does not make you a crappy woman. It makes you a smart woman.
It's what has to happen for me to live the life that I live.
Yes.
And we all make choices, right? And that's
It makes you a smart woman and someone who knows how to use their time effectively. I, this year, have decided to stop doing laundry as well.
Good.
It actually is so funny because I was going to the laundromat, even though I have a washer and dryer at home. I wash my comforters at a laundry facility because I just don't want my washing machine to get messed up, and we've had issues. So I went to this laundromat to go wash my clothes, and then I see this sign that's like laundry service, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it says, drop your laundry off and pick it up tomorrow, washed and folded.
Yeah.
I was like, listen,
Yep.
sign me up.
Yep.
Sign me up. And so that's been wonderful because now it's literally on my way to work. I stop, drop it off, and go about my business. And then the next day they call and they're like, your laundry's ready. So I stopped doing laundry. I've had an executive assistant now for a little over a year. And this was something that a mentor told me that I desperately needed because I was coming home from vacation after, relaxing to like 1,000 emails and having to go through all those emails. And she was like, no, that defeats the whole purpose of you being gone. So get an assistant. So I got an assistant and then personal assistant, someone to come in and organize things in my home because I have children and children do not organize. They just throw things everywhere. And that's just, how kids are. But I'm someone who does not thrive in that environment. When there's chaos, I cannot think clearly.
Totally. 100%.
I need order. So I'm like, let me just hire someone to do the organization. That way, when I come home, I can relax and I'm not thinking about all the things that I need to do at home after working all day. So I fully support having that support at home. I actually need a new VA right now. I'm looking for an assistant and I'm like, I feel naked not having someone checking my inbox and looking at my calendar for me because I'm like, what if I forget something or so once you've had that support, you realize how much it really does help you thrive in other areas of your life. And when you run multiple businesses, it's almost essential.
I cannot schedule anything to save my life. And I'm not afraid to say that because it just doesn't happen. Like people will text me like, can I get on a call with you? And I'm like, yeah. And I'll look at my calendar and I have 6 different calendars going. And I'm like, okay, sure. That spot might work. But then I'll text my assistant and she's like, no, And so I just know she has to schedule everything for me. And I think one of the things that women do, which is terrible, is we shame ourselves for our quote unquote weaknesses. I'm not bad at managing a calendar. I just have so many things going on that's literally all she does. Whereas I'm like, oh, wait, I have to pick up my daughter here. Oh, wait, I have my own hair appointment. I have my own appointments and things like that. And so I think just releasing that shame of women have to do it all and I should be able to manage my own calendar. No, that is what she does for me. And I just have to follow it.
Yeah. And with all due respect, because we are such high performing, busy women, we need people to manage those things for us and to be good at doing those things. Because if they drop the ball, then that's extra work for us to have to do. So, shout out to our assistants and our support personnel and people who really help us because it's not an easy job. And so if someone is doing a good job at that, that's totally their zone of genius. And they help people like us thrive because I can manage my own schedule or whatever, but someone else is going to do a much better job at it than I am. So I love that you shared that openly. And let's talk about it. Let's normalize having that type of support. So when it comes to scaling your business, your mobile fees company, how large did that company get?
It ended up getting pretty big. I think we were servicing about 100 different skilled nursing facilities and hospitals across New York State. So it did get pretty big.
How many patients?
I think we ended up seeing over 6,000. We performed over 6,000 swallow studies.
Wow, that's incredible. So with scaling that, what decisions helped you continue to grow? Did you ever have a point where you were afraid to keep getting bigger?
No. I was never afraid to keep getting bigger. I just, you hate to disappoint people, right? You say, well, I'm going to do this bigger, faster, better until you get into it, right? And I think that's every CEO or entrepreneur starts the thing because they can do it better. And so you just feel bad when you're not able to, service the patients or you just can't logistically make the schedule work or, a therapist does call out sick or your own child is sick and you can't cover. So there's always those things that are always going to come up, but you have to not let those things stop you from moving forward.
And the reason I ask is because I know for my business, we have grown significantly over the past 6 years. It was just me and another therapist. And now, we have a team of 50 therapists. I have another 50 people who work on the team as respite rehabilitation attendant care providers. I have the admin team. And I remember being afraid of like getting too big.
Yep.
I was like, should I continue to hire people? Because this business is getting a lot bigger than I thought it was going to get, and very quickly, right? But then there's that, I don't want to leave anyone unserved.
Yeah.
I don't want to disappoint the parent who calls and, has been looking forever for services, and let me just hire one more therapist so I can get these people seen.
Yeah. I mean, I think there definitely there's that balance, right? There's seasons of business. Yeah. And I certainly had that with the Medical SLP Collective, even, last year. There's seasons of just stabilization, right? Of saying like, no, okay, we need to get the house in order before we can grow more. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of things we had to do strategically in-house last year before, I want to grow and do a lot of big things this year, but we had to do some things in the meantime. So I think that's part of being a smart CEO too, is knowing when, okay, no, we're not going to hire anybody right now.
Right.
It stinks. It's awful to say, no, I'm sorry, we don't have any availability or we have a waiting list. But sometimes that is making those smart strategic decisions of foregoing some additional profit in order to, reduce expenses or get, like I just keep saying, getting your house in order in the meantime. And that there's no shame in that. It's just what you have to do to have scalability in the future is sustainability and scalability. And that's something that I love to talk about, is how do you continue to have a sustainable and profitable business? And there's going to be years that are ugly and they don't look like, they look like this on the chart. They don't look like that on the chart. And that's okay. But I think a lot of times people think they have to run as fast as they can, or it's one or the other. They think they have to run as fast as they can for as long as they can until they burn out, or they limit themselves and say, well, I only want to keep it this small.
Yeah.
And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But release the shame of saying, well, they're this big company, I'm just this small one. Well, you're choosing that.
Yeah.
So choose your hard, right? Choose to stay small, or choose to go run with the big dogs and know everything that's going to come with that too. And there's nothing wrong with being either or. Just don't.
Yeah.
Choose your hard.
So I'm going to delve into a little bit more of the challenges as we talk about growth and expansion. And I shared this the other day on my social media, is that one of the things that I'm noticing now as my company is getting larger is that the problems are different that I'm seeing in my business. Yes. Like when we were smaller, our problems were with like no-shows and cancellations and, hiring. And now we have this amazing built out team, and we're supporting, 200 patients a week. We have contracts with all these school districts. And now my problems are like legal things that come up. So could you talk a little bit about some of those big challenges that you might have faced? Like how did you see the same shift in your business
Totally.
as well?
Totally. And I think everybody says, what is it? It's like new level,
new
devil.
New devil.
And you always think like, what could that possibly mean? Yeah. And you don't realize it until you face it. And I think it's perspective, right? People, accuse me of like toxic positivity or whatever, but I think that's what keeps business owners sane, right? Is saying like, I have these problems, but I'm grateful for these problems because I've built this thing that has led me to having these problems, and they're not easy. And I think that's what takes a lot of entrepreneurs out of the game, but it's also the importance of having a really strong team and a really strong supportive team around you, whether in your professional life and in your personal life, to help you through these things, because those things can eat you alive.
Oh my gosh.
And they can, when I was going through some challenges, I had to just tell myself like, am I going to face these head on? Am I going to walk through these, or am I going to quit and walk away? Mm-hmm. And quitting and walking away wasn't the option.
Right.
So what's the alternative? Okay, I'm going to face these head on, and I'm going to go through them, and it's not going to be fun for a while. But that's what we're going to do to come out on the other side and stick to my mission of wanting to help patients get the best services they can.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It can eat you alive. I've lost sleep over some of those big problems that come up. And these are battles that we fight silently, honestly. I mean, besides your like immediate team, your close team members, people on the outside don't really know that these things are happening. But it goes back to, like you said, having that supportive team. I know for us, like having systems, having the ability to like pull records and backtrack and, show receipts, as I like to say. That is what has saved us in those situations and has allowed us to kind of come out of potentially very destructive situations. We were able to come out unharmed. So
I would say a lot of it too, as I've gotten older, because I'm old now, I'm 40 now, Ebony.
I'm just a few weeks away. So
I mean older as in more experience,
right.
More businesses as growth happens too, is a lot of those huge challenges that I made huge deals about, I just don't even give any attention to now.
Yeah.
And sometimes it stinks, but it's sometimes like, okay, pay this lawyer and make this go away and don't even think twice about it. Or it's, you know what, this person wants to make a huge deal, let them. I mean, I think that's the new Mel Robbins.
That is the new Mel Robbins. Let them.
And there's so much power in doing that. Like this person wants to make a huge stink. They want to make a huge ordeal. They want to bring you down. Okay, let them. Yeah. But you don't get to come into my protective piece.
Yeah.
And that's given me a lot of power in the last few years too, is okay, that's fine if they want to act that way. Or, if they want to cause this whole stir, I can either, have a situation, control it, or I can just not let it be a thing. Yeah. And I think that's something that I wish I knew a lot sooner. I made huge deals out of some things that in reality probably weren't that huge of a deal, and that derailed me from my actual mission, or derailed me from spending good quality time with my kids. And that's the value cost proposition you have to think of. Like, am I going to let this thing eat me, or am I going to just let this person have this temper tantrum? Or am I going to let this person come at me for this, or am I going to just let somebody else handle it?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've learned. I think the biggest piece of advice is really that let them theory it's a good one.
No, yeah. I totally agree. And you've been in the online space now for a while. You've built your businesses while developing your platform online. And I'm sure you've seen a shift, right, in the audacity that people have these days.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just projections and people not truly understanding who you are because, they might see you online and think that they know you, but they really don't. So having that ability to say, let them, I think is so important. If you're wanting to build a platform online, you have to let them believe what they want to believe. And you just continue to thrive in your own lane and continue to do what you're good at. And, you've demonstrated that time and time again by building these businesses, even in the midst of some huge challenges in your business, getting your PhD, opening her clinic, and you're also working on a certification. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So the certification that came about, so the Medical SLP Collective is what it is. It's wonderful. But what we were finding with the collective was that people were wanting even more really in-depth supportive information. And so I started looking into it. What does that look like? Does it look like, a lot more intensive coursework? Does it look like one-on-one mentorship? And then it really came about because one day I was doing some PRN work at a hospital, and I was sitting in a staff meeting, and they were doing budget plans for the next year. And someone came in and said, okay, we're doing budgeting for next year. I just want to know what certifications you guys are all looking to do. We have to prove to JACO that we offer this, education that's through these accredited certifications, so we can prove to JACO why we're, a certified stroke center, or there's all different sectors that JACO has. So anyways, I'm sitting in this meeting, and she goes around and says, okay, who's taking what certification? And the PT goes, oh, I want to take this, foot and ankle one next year. And she said, okay, how much is that? And he said, it's $15,000. And then she said, okay, OT, who wants to do what? And this OT said, well, I want to do this sensory balance certification. Okay, how much is that? Okay, it's $12,000. And she goes, okay, SLPs, who's doing what next year? Nobody said anything. And one of the PTs chimed in and said, well, there's no SLPs doing anything because there's no accredited certifications out there for them to even do. So they couldn't do anything if they wanted to. And I was like, so you're not wrong.
We're the redheaded stepchild.
Yes. I was like, you're not wrong. There is no medical speech pathology certifications that exist that have been accredited. And so it just got me thinking, okay, why does this matter, right? This matters because this is something that this is something that hospital systems, that major medical centers are wanting, and they're willing to pay for their employees so that they can justify the reimbursement, so that they can justify the programs that they offer. So that's when we decided, okay, you know what, we're not going to just build these. We're going to build these more intensive courses for medical SLPs, but we're going to also turn it into a certification, and we're going to get it accredited. So we're going through accreditation with the NCCA. which is the highest medical accrediting agency. So they accredit, radiology, oncology, they accredit all these certifications for major medical providers. And us as medical SLPs always make a stink that we're not respected by other medical professionals. Okay, well then let's get in the room with them.
Yeah.
Let's hold ourselves to those standards that they're held by.
Right.
So we should be out of accreditation by hopefully this summer. It's been the longest, most grueling 3-year process of my life, putting a certification through an accreditation. Absolutely. Talk about people have no idea what goes on behind the scenes. Absolutely. I can't even tell you thousands of hours I've poured into this. Wow. But I'm determined to see it to the finish line because I see what it can do for our profession and what it can do for being respected in the major medical centers that we want to be respected in.
Yeah, I'm speechless. I'm speechless because it was hard just to, get my my certification to be an ASHA CEU provider, my certification to become an SLP. Yeah. You're doing something groundbreaking that's literally going to change the trajectory of how SLPs are viewed in the medical field. So hats off to you.
Yeah, thank you.
This is the type of energy that I like to be around because I'm like, she's out here literally changing the field.
Yeah.
I need to do better.
Yeah. Well, and we all can, right? Like, I don't know, I get these wild ideas, and whether this is a great idea or not, who knows? But I'm willing to see it through to fruition. But I think we all just need to be challenging ourselves to, okay, what's the next better thing that I can do? But also, how can I work with the system? People say that I'm working against the system and I'm creating something that's against SLPs, and that's not it at all. This is to help SLPs, and it's also something that the hospitals are wanting, and they're willing to pay for it. And so Correct. Something that SLPs say all the time is like, well, we're not paid enough. We're not given enough CEU money. Like, this is something that my hope is that, many of the major medical centers have said we're willing to pay for this and offer this for our SLPs. And so that to me is exactly what we need.
No, absolutely. And thinking about, what I do and why I started the SLP Business Suite. I started the SLP Business Suite because I wasn't able to find a lot of training on how to successfully run a business, right? Our good friend, Jenna Castro-Casbon, she's one of the pioneers who started the private practice training and modules that she offers. But beyond that, there's just not a lot of business support. And so I was like, okay, I need to see what I can do to help fill that gap. And now in my doctoral program, that's what my dissertation is about. It's about the lack of training and resources that are available to speech language pathologists who are in graduate programs but want to go into private practice.
Love it.
How can we change that whole narrative? And what's very interesting to me is that there's no research out there on private practice and SLPs. Most of my research has come from audiology. Yep. There's a ton of audiology private practice research, not a whole lot for speech language pathology. So there's a gap that needs to be filled. And what you're doing is basically that, right? Yep. You're filling that gap and hopefully changing the whole narrative and the trajectory of SLPs in the medical field, which I think is phenomenal. Okay, so let's wrap up. This has been a very good conversation. I've enjoyed just hearing about all the things that you've done, what you're working on. I want to know about your future goals. So you touched a little bit on the clinic. What is the next big dream that you're working towards?
Yeah, so I am opening up a clinic, and it's not just any clinic. I want it to be a massive clinic. I want it to be a state-of-the-art, world-renowned clinic. I feel like I've been talking about what SLPs should do for years, and I want to go do and build the thing that I think SLPs should be doing.
Yes.
And so, we're going to have all the things. I want to have a radiology suite for video fluoroscopy. I want to have fees. I want to have all of the different, biofeedback tools and eSTEM tools. And I want patients to just have a one-stop shop. I want to be able to offer intensive therapy programs and caregiver support and be able to offer teletherapy. And I'm really excited about it. Like, I really feel like this is the next phase in my career. I love all of my other businesses that I have, of course. But I want to get back to helping patients. I used to work with patients, and then I had to stop and have babies for a little bit. But now, my daughter's about to start kindergarten. So I'm ready to get back into helping patients, being around patients every single day, and really just walking the walk of what I've been talking about for so many years. So
yes. What an incredible way to put into practice everything that you've been teaching. All the other businesses that you've built and bringing those back into like this full circle moment.
And I'm almost done with my PhD. So I really want it to be like a teaching learning institute as well. I want it to be a clinical teaching hospital. And so that's, a big passion of mine too, is being able to offer clinical fellowships and take on grad students. And I want it to be a place where a lot of teaching is fostered as well, because there truly is nothing like that.
There isn't. No, there really isn't. I can't tell you how many requests we get for students who want those medical placements. And, what we provide to some degree does help with that, but there really needs to be like a facility, right? That's like state of the art, that has people that are going to teach them. And I think about that often as well, because I believe that, as our profession continues to evolve, like we need to start educating like beyond just what people are getting in the classroom, right? That's why I started the SLP Business Suite platform, because beyond graduate school, like there needs to be support. And I just think that's incredible. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. I'm definitely going to come to your grand opening whenever you have it.
Good.
Do you have any advice for people who want to start a business, but kind of don't know where to start?
Yeah, just go build the thing. I mean, go start talking to people. I can't stress enough talking to people. With this clinic, I've wanted to build this for a while now. I've stopped and I was paralyzed for a little while. Like I went through a divorce last year. I'll share that. And I was paralyzed with what my next move is going to be. How do I start this clinic? Like of everything I've done, I'm like, what does this look like? And I just started having conversations with people, and it led to the next person. It led to the next person. It led to the next person. And I'm really, really, really excited about it. And I think that's one thing that people don't do is, they have these ideas, but they keep them to themselves. And I think that's the worst business advice ever. People will say, don't share your ideas or make somebody sign an NDA. And I think that's stupid. I think that's the dumbest thing. Like if you want to go do the thing, talk about it. There's so many people that are willing to support you. You post things on Instagram and I'm like, I love that idea. Find people that think your ideas are good, because they're going to be the ones that support you when the times are tough. And then just go start doing the thing. Like I said, I will support anybody that has the guts to get in the arena and go build something. And there's so many people out there that talk about it. Well, it should be done. It should be done this way. It should be done this way. You can't say those things until you've actually tried to do things that way. So please stop talking. That's my advice, is go talk to people and go build the thing that's you're passionate about. If it's on your heart, it's something you're meant to do.
And there you have it. We want you to go out there and build a thing. Don't just think about it, actually do it. And like Theresa said, I'm a firm believer too, that if you have an idea, talk to people. Like, don't just keep that idea and store it away and then say you're going to come back to it later. I remember when I started my private practice, I was talking about it like I already had it before I even started, planning for the business. Like, I knew that this was something that I was going to do. And so therefore I embraced that, and I wasn't afraid to share it with other people. I talked to a ton of people. I took my supervisor out to dinner. I was like, I'm going to take you to a steakhouse so we can talk about this idea that I have. Right. And she was very nice. And we sat down and discussed, some of the things that I needed to know. But yeah, like, don't be afraid to actually do the thing. So thank you so much, Theresa,
thank you for having me.
For this conversation. I'm sure we'll get to collaborate on future projects together as you start this new journey. And thank you for just being a support person for me. Of course. We've been through different business challenges. You've been through, your divorce. We're going through doctoral programs at the same time right now. So it's just nice to have another woman who truly understands like some of the things that you go through in business and in life while you are at the top of your career. And it's just nice to have another woman who truly understands like some of the ups and downs of being a career woman, having a family, and doing the things that you're passionate about. So thank you so much.